until her body would go limp. In a matter of
why do you keep saying hypothermia? In everything I've ever heard and learned about hypothermia, I've never heard about someone suffering from it, ripping their clothes off, and turning into a zombie. This.
Since pilots couldn't see out of the plane because of angled landing, engineers put together a solution.
The Concorde featured a droop snoot.
Droop snoot?
Yeah, the snoot would droop.
The snoot drooped.
Solid. That will do it.
I'm gonna try to smoke my own weight in weed eventually.
Holy shit.
There's only time in front of me, and I've already done 4.2 pounds. I can do it.
What a goal. Wow.
Hi, I'm Tony Greenhand.
Hey, Tony.
26, and I'm a professional joint roller.
The National Joint League. Holy fuck, the NJL?
Basically jump
That's
out of
huge.
bed and start rolling joints too. I make coffee and I start rolling, and while my coffee's being made, I'm like, boom, let's do it.
Tony truly is an artist.
It was pretty basic. I also bred cannabis, but just on the side. I'm known more for the joints now, which is a surprise to me.
Oh, wow, what the fuck? Tony's good. They should sell his joints right next to like Banksy's work.
My mom was
Jackson Pollock
at a police department, so she absolutely hates what I do.
It's kind of like balloon animals for adults.
Here, and then I'll fill the sleeves instead of rolling these, and that's because I want this to be 100% perfect. Since it's gonna be the barrel of the gun, I need it to be straight all the way across.
That's pretty cool, actually. What the fuck?
He's got a private jet, and he's coming to pick it up.
So people are paying $7 grand for like a artistic joint? What a good deal. I mean, Tony seems like a good guy. I mean, he just loves to roll joints, I guess. I mean, they were pretty cool. They were not lame like I was expecting. Oh my fucking god, I know this. Oh shit. I remember this. This was like when I was still new to Reddit. Yeah, I remember this. This was solved. If I remember, I'll let the video play and then I'll go off memory and see if I'm right. He's a tier 1 Guatemalan god. I did not know her name was Elisa Lam. It wasn't solved recently, it was solved pretty soon after this video aired. Was it real or she faked it? Bro, she fucking died. What do you mean? Did she fake it? That'd be the ultimate prank. What I remember most about this is, this hit Reddit, it got really big on Reddit, and the Reddit detectives went hard. Like, they were going in on this video. I remember reading all kinds of theories. This was also around the time where Slender Man was still popular, so I saw a lot of Slender Man theories that she was trying to escape from him or some shit. Like, it got weird quick. Does it show how she died? No. So I'll just tell you what happens once the video ends, because the video is super weird. But what happens is, she eventually was found in a water tank on the roof. She died. Yeah, so on top of this hotel, she was found in a water tank, drowned. And the explanation, if I remember correctly, this is all off memory. One of her friends came forward and said that they had actually done acid earlier that day. Which explains all the weird hand movements and shit, and what must have happened is she just got real confused and then ended up wandering into the roof and fell into the water tank or some shit. I'm going off memory, so I don't know if that's right. So it had to do with stopping her medication. They said there was no evidence of trauma, assault, or suicide. So bipolar being a big factor. Yeah, it doesn't really give a very good explanation as to what happened, but it does solve a lot of the questions, like such as how she got on the roof, saying that it was easily accessible via fire escape and the tank lids were open. but it doesn't say how she closed the tank lid from the inside. Yeah, so it doesn't seem like it really has a good explanation. Yeah, it was open, but it was also closed when they found her, which means she would have had to have closed the lid from the inside, which is apparently not easy. Oh, it was open when they found her. Oh, what? Wait, didn't it just say ignoring the problem of how it was closed? What? Didn't I read that somewhere? Where did I just read that? Oh. Hotel employee found the body, said the lid was open at the time, removing the issue of how she could have closed the lid from the inside. Got it. Got it.
The Dyatlov Pass incident. A case that many consider to be one of the greatest mysteries of all time. As over 60 years later, there is no agreed upon conclusion to what exactly had happened to those hikers.
Whippers.
And part of what has always drawn me to this mystery is its uniqueness, as I always thought nothing like it could ever happen again. But little did I know, it already has. It was August 9th, 1993, as a group of Ukrainian kayakers paddled their way through a remote river in southern Siberia. The river tour would take them near the vast Khamar Daban mountain range and give them a full view of its beauty. As they followed the twisting river, the group would
the
catch
Charles
a glimpse
White
of
ass incident.
moving in the woods. It was a young lady wandering aimlessly with a frozen expression on her face. She was all alone with blood on her jacket.
Uh-oh.
The kayakers would call out to her, asking who she was and if she needed help, but the girl didn't answer. In fact, she didn't say a word. Whatever she had seen on that mountain range had traumatized her, to the point where she
Canadian
couldn't speak,
and
having barely spoken of the incident to this day.
Watching, man.
The kayakers would bring her back to civilization, where it would be discovered that her name was Valentina Yudachenko.
Hello, Valentina.
Who had been visiting the area as part of a tourist expedition through the mountain range.
There's a gift sub shack.
But the concerning part was, she wasn't alone. Or at least she hadn't been when she started her hike. In fact, she had been with 6 other hikers during her trip. Hikers who were nowhere to be found.
There's the prime Bjorn.
Those mountains that was so traumatic that it left Valentina in a state of shock for years and caused the disappearance of her entire crew. Well, the story is as strange and disturbing as it gets. It all started on August 2nd, 1990.
Real quick, anyone that's seen this, is there anything TOS worrisome in here? They don't show any bodies or anything, right? I'm going to assume not, but just want to cover bases. We good?
Khamar Daban. The group consisted of 24-year-old Tatiana Filipenko, 23-year-old Alexander Kresin, as well as Denis Shvachin, Victoria Zalasova, Tamar Babanov, and of course, Valentina Yudachenko, each of whom were merely teenagers.
There's a prime Tadex and
Despite
Loki.
their youth, they were all well-trained and
no worries, Justin, thank you.
And the group was led by 41-year-old Ludmila Korovina, an internationally renowned master in pedestrian tourism. They were a well-prepared and run group, and the Khamar Daban Mountains were not viewed as being dangerous, especially in the middle of summer. Second,
23-year-old teenagers, yeah.
Nearby trails.
I don't know what to tell you.
One of which was even led by Ludmila's 16-year-old daughter, Natalia.
I know all about that, Jukes.
Meeting up the very
I talked about it as well.
In the mountains, along with their respective crews, before Ludmila and company would continue on towards Ludyanka, their final destination. However, the forecast couldn't have been more wrong.
I'll look into it later, Crone.
On and off spouts of freezing rain poured down upon the group and predicted an oncoming snowstorm as the group climbed the Kanulu mountain. And by August 4th, the snowstorm was in full effect, pummeling the exhausted hikers and forcing them to reroute and miss their connection with Natalia.
Just get an umbrella, nerds.
Drained of energy, Ludmilla would make the call to set up camp.
Who would take this photo? They look miserable.
For the night. A move that to this day is still questioned, as the hikers were merely half an hour away from a shelter that stood on top of that very mountain. The sun would rise the next day to more stormy weather, with the snow continuing to fall around them.
And Prime Bond.
Ludmilla knew that staying where they were would only spell trouble.
Yeah, I read about it, Dor.
So she ordered the group down the mountain and into the cover of the woods below. They'd never make it there. Just minutes into their descent, Alexander Christin would begin to stumble. The man considered to be the strongest of the group would fall to the ground as his mouth began to fill with foam. Blood would rush out of his ears and his nose as he laid there seizing violently in front of his group. The hikers stood there stunned. Christin was in perfect health, and just minutes ago he was fine. And now he laid in front of them, dying. They had been outside for mere minutes.
It's a haunted trail.
Their crew members were down. The 5 hikers continued moving forward without their leader and their strongest member, trudging ahead in a state of shock and confusion. However, this descent wouldn't last long. As they walked out of sight of Ludmilla and their dying friend, screams started ringing out from on top of the hill. It was Ludmilla. They rushed back up to see what was the matter.
A bear.
Only to find a disturbing scene.
Alexander polar bear
was lying there, dead. And Ludmilla was dying too.
What?
Unable to move and on her last breath. To this day, it's still unclear what she died from, with reports saying that she had suffered from the same mysterious illness that Alexander seemed to have, while others say that it may have just been a heart attack.
They show a body? Well, it can't be one of theirs unless they just started taking photos. Here, let me just double check. Scanning through it right now, I don't see anything like that. All I'm doing is spoiling the fucking story. Also, early hypothesis, the lady that survived, Valentina, she killed them and made up the story. This shit is making no sense right now.
But either way, chaos erupted from the group. Both Victoria and Tamar would quickly collapse on the ground, twitching violently and bleeding the same way that Christin had. They began tearing at their clothes, ripping them off and grabbing their necks as if they were being choked, all the whilst they desperately tried to gasp for air. Valentina rushed to help.
Sounds like something out of Dr. Stone, like they
in an instant,
went to like a poison well.
Would sink her teeth into Valentina, biting her and forcing her to back off.
What?
While this happened, Dennis started to run away from the group out of fear and confusion, having no idea what was happening to his friends or why. He could only watch as, one by one, they began to lose their minds.
Thanks again, Liam. Thanks to the resub Niners rule.
With Dennis hiding from the group, Tatiana also began to tear her warm clothing off, exposing her body to the freezing cold elements. She too grabbed for her throat and acted as if her own body was torturing her. Once on the ground, she would turn her attention to the rock that laid next to her, and in an instant she would begin to smash her head against it, over and over again, until her body would go limp. In a matter of
why do you keep saying hypothermia? In everything I've ever heard and learned about hypothermia, I've never heard about someone suffering from it, ripping their clothes off and turning into a zombie. Why do people keep saying hypothermia? Is there something I'm not understanding about it? 20 to 50% of hypothermia deaths are associated with paradoxical undressing. Oh, so this is real. This typically occurs during moderate or severe hypothermia as the person becomes disoriented, confused, and combative. Wow. They may begin discarding their clothing, which in turn increases the rate of heat loss. This is a real thing. I've never heard of this. In all of those like survival movies and shit, you never see the main character that's suffering from hypothermia getting naked and slamming his dick on a rock. This is interesting. Paradoxical undressing.
Succumbed to their mysterious symptoms. Dennis would emerge to help Valentina as the two were the only ones left who hadn't faltered. However, their health was starting to wither as well. They remained in the forest, close to the site where their whole group had just died, unsure of what to do next.
Thanks, Risa Basling, and have fun, Naughty.
I can't imagine the silence.
And yes, I've heard of that Guatemalan.
They must have been experiencing.
And
They
maybe
stood
we
there
will.
together after witnessing all their friends drop dead in front of them. Friends that a mere hour ago were in perfect health. And the stark fate wasn't quite finished with the group either, as a short time later, Dennis would collapse alongside Valentina, as he too began bleeding profusely, leaving Valentina as the only living member of the group. Completely traumatized and scared for her life, Valentina took supplies from the camp and proceeded to wander alone in the forest. She did so for 3 days before being found by the kayakers.
Oh, okay, never mind. Probably this is probably what you were talking about. So you're telling me, and we'll go back to the video in a second, but I have to skip the bodies. So you're telling me that Valentina somehow hiked for 3 more days after her entire group all got hypothermia at the same time? I feel like she'd be very close to it as well. Unless she just had, like, really warm clothing. I don't know. Judging by the video here, it'd be kind of hard to like hide this as a murder. So I fall back on my theory. I don't think it's right. I think I'm wrong.
A story that seemingly makes no sense. 6 healthy people turning insane and dropping dead in the matter of minutes.
Just play audio.
Which
fine.
prompts the...
I mean, there's not a lot here, but sure.
Группу и попросила подняться
It's in another language too, so.
Таня достала
Thanks to the huge tier 3. Resub Gimji and
as they
Kukius.
received no guidance from the deeply traumatized Valentina. And what the rescue party saw when they stumbled upon the scene would shake them to their core. With one member saying it was a scary picture, the hikers were lying on a small ledge, some huddled together,
Oh wait,
some a little
I forgot
distance
these.
away. They had a story that seemingly makes no sense. 6 healthy people turning insane and dropping dead in the matter of minutes, which prompts the
I didn't know it came up twice.
What happened to
Still
those
blurred.
hikers?
It's fine.
A question that to this day remains without a true answer, where autopsy reports ruled that the 6 hikers had died of hypothermia and protein deficiency, pointing to the idea that the group had not been eating enough throughout their trip. But the more I look into this, the less I believe that this is possible.
What? Why?
Just looking over the symptoms, this cause of death does explain some of their behaviors, such as the paradoxical...
Hey, I just learned about that. Fuck
However,
yeah.
it fails to explain them all.
Makes a
The
prime
bleeding,
Truman and
the banging
Dodo.
of their heads against rocks, the foaming of the mouth, and the bleeding are all inconsistent with this conclusion. So how could hypothermia have set in so quickly?
Must have been
After
very
all,
cold.
it was summertime, and despite the snow, the temperature was likely barely below freezing. Also, if hypothermia were truly to blame, and they were in such bad shape that each hiker died in the span of minutes, then how could Valentina have continued
That's
to
what I
survive
said.
for 3 more days? It just doesn't make sense. And as for the protein deficiency, Valentina herself had mentioned that the group had eaten well throughout their trip, and had even ate together on the morning of their deaths. It's also worth noting that they ate as a group together, with each member eating the same thing. So how had Valentina survived if she had eaten what they had eaten? And has caused myself and many others to doubt this theory. But if it wasn't hypothermia and protein deficiency, then what could it have been? As is the case with most mysteries, some have blamed the supernatural.
Yeah, it was Bigfoot!
Otherworldly had happened to the group, while others have taken a more scientific stance, blaming things like low frequency in the area, which caused the group to go in a panic.
What?
But I have a hard time believing either of these, as the area was not all that remote, and it's well studied by scientists. Plus, this doesn't line up with Valentina's testimony, as well as the conditions of their bodies. Another possibility is that the group had eaten something poisonous on their trip, an idea that is certainly possible, as Ludmilla was often known to be a forager. So perhaps
Oh, God.
some sort of fungus or
Jesus,
berry,
yeah.
giving it to the group to eat.
That's the
without
worst leader to
realizing
have.
that it was actually toxic. A poisonous mushroom could certainly cause the hikers to hallucinate and potentially bleed internally. But the issue is, Valentina never mentioned that the group had foraged for food.
Well, ask
She is
her.
on record saying that they had eaten well. If they had ate something suspicious out there, she certainly would have told authorities.
Needs to give
Plus,
some
if they had
Archer
all
in the
eaten
Prime Bell.
together, then how had Valentina not been poisoned? And finally, Ludmilla was an expert at this kind of stuff, so it's unlikely that she would make a mistake of this magnitude, especially given how well she knew the area. But if it hadn't been the food that had poisoned them, then perhaps it was something in the air.
Chemtrails.
Russia has long since been known for their development of deadly chemical weapons, producing them in secret and testing them in undisclosed locations. And around this time, it's documented that they had a specific interest in deadly nerve agents, chemicals that could have caused the hikers to snap and act the way they did, as well as causing their bleeding and foaming of the mouth. Because of this, many think it's possible that the Russians had been testing or even dumping their chemicals in the area where the hikers just happened to be.
What?
After all, in 1993, the Soviet Union was already disbanded, an event that caused thousands of these chemical weapons to go missing, the best possibility for explaining how it happened so quickly. Now, following this theory even more, the case gained virtually no media coverage, besides for a single local article, and it's barely known to this day, pushing some to believe that it could have been covered up. And there's also one final key detail that I found in my research that could point to this theory being true. After authorities were alerted that a group of tourists were missing, they didn't set out a search party until a full week had gone by, despite there being clear weather. Some online have taken this as an indication that authorities were waiting for the toxins in the area to clear before beginning their search. But there are some issues.
No, I don't know that one.
First of all, the location where the hikers were visiting was fairly popular, and they were a mere 100 meters away from a shelter that was designed for people to stay in.
This channel's popular garbage.
The military test or dump weapons.
I've never heard of the Khamar Daban incident.
A remote area.
The fuck are you talking about?
Also, how would Valentina? It's a frustrating case as the answer seems so hard to settle on. Potentially because it's been incredibly underreported.
Thanks to resub.
And the reports that are out there are filled with speculation rather than fact. Also, of the original articles written on this, many were made in other languages, which may have led to things being lost in translation over the years.
Oh, maybe.
And though Valentina's testimony tells us what had happened on those mountains, it's also possible she had misremembered things, especially given the extreme shock and trauma she had experienced. She had also just recently started discussing this event, leaving things to be forgotten over the years. So with all these factors, it's possible we may not even have the full story, which just adds more mystery to this strange case. And given the lack of attention it's received,
they weren't malnourished is the thing.
We never know for sure what happened in those mountains.
If I had to wager a guess, I'd still go with hypothermia. And what do you mean popular garbage? I've never... fucking Khamar Daban has like nothing about it. Yeah, I think hypothermia. I think it's unlikely she poisoned them. I feel like that would have been easily detected. I also don't think that they ate anything poisonous, considering they weren't malnourished, so they were just eating shit they brought. I think it had to do with literally just hypothermia.